Apparently, I'm live. Hi, everyone. It's BritSimon. I just wanted to jump on here and take a few questions. I know there's going to be some questions about DV 2020 and DV 2021. I'm happy to take those questions. Happy to take questions on DV 2022, which is like watching a car crash happening in slow motion. Or we can take questions on DV 2023, and I can answer some of those questions, which I'm sure are going to be fairly basic questions right now, because DV 2023 winners are relatively new to the process, so they're not going to know very much, and I'll have some basic questions. So everybody needs to be kind and gentle to everyone else. We'll have a few people, and we'll have a few questions, and we'll see what goes on. So. Cedric, hello. How are you doing? Welcome. Good to see you. You're the first person in. I see there's about 30 people joining us. So hopefully you've got some questions. I'm going to be as quick as I can with the questions, by the way, so to try and answer as many as I can. So is it necessary thing to grab a work certificate at the day of the interview? If you're qualifying by education, they generally don't ask for a work certificate as such. If on the other hand, you're qualifying by work experience, which is professional work experience gained over the last 5 years for at least 2 years, you need to have 2 years of work experience at a professional level. And I've got a blog article about this explaining exactly this. But it needs to be at a professional level, and you need to have done that level of work within the last 5 years. In that case, a work certificate could be interesting. But I always tell people, if you're going to an interview, that's your chance to nail it, right? So you prepare as much as you can. You over-prepare if necessary. You get documents that maybe you think they won't ask for that, but if you can get the document, take it with you. There's no harm in that, right? AF38K, but no interview date yet, says Cedric. Yeah, Cedric, right now, DV 2022 is like a lottery within a lottery. Depending on which embassy you're at, you either have some chance or, sadly, many people are not going to have a chance. And really the difference is, if you're at an embassy that has, let's say, 500 people lined up, either by case number or documentarily qualified date, people argue about that, fine, whatever. But if there's 500 people in front of you and that embassy are only interviewing 50 cases a month, then you're in a bad way, right? And the problem is that if you're assigned to the embassy, you can't change. Kcc will no longer switch you. So the reality is, if that's the position you're in, it's not going to work out well. If, on the other hand, your embassy is making 50 cases available, 50 interviews available per month, and each month you see them doing about 30 or 40 interviews, then it probably means they're up to date with their interviews, and they don't have a backlog at that particular embassy. And the Kcc will actually still be processing DS-260s for that embassy, and so you're likely to be able to get through. So unfortunately, it's a lottery within a lottery. It's a bit of a mess. But the reality is they made almost every case current. And there's no way in the world that mathematically every case can be processed, because there aren't enough visas, there's not enough time, and the embassies have deprioritized diversity lottery. So it's not going to work out well for some people, Cedric, but just keep pushing, and hopefully your embassy is working well. What do I think about Kcc processing for DV 2022? Yeah, I think I just covered it. It's a mess, right? Why is it so slow? Well, again, it really is to do with this deprioritization of diversity compared to other visas, other immigrant visas. It's clear there was a deliberate decision made to deprioritize diversity visas for DV 2022, and instead they're focusing their efforts on all sorts of other visa classes, immigrant visa classes, and we can see that in the data. There's no way they can hide from that, and so the lawsuits are going to fight that particular battle. in my opinion, and in the opinion of the lawyers fighting the government, there is no justification for this deprioritization. So that's going to be what the cases will hinge on if they actually go to court. Laminated certificates in general don't laminate certificates. In some African countries, it's commonplace to do that because you're worried about the quality of the certificate, getting damaged or whatever. But it also is a way that is used to hide fraudulent documents, as I understand it. And so some embassies are naturally suspicious of it. Will they accept your particular laminated document? I don't know. It's up to the particular consular officer. Yeah, same thing, Clan Chief. I know you're struggling, and thank you for coming back. You're a regular listener. No 2NL so far. Again, it depends on your embassy. Fingers crossed for you. If you did not get selected for DV 2023, should you continue checking or just re-enter the next lottery? Okay, so I've had messages about this. There are some dopey YouTubers out there that just give crappy information. Let's be honest. They should stick to doing other things, frankly. I don't know why they bother. But anyway, there is one particular YouTuber in Sri Lanka that is telling people to check every month. Well, that's bullshit. Sorry to be so blunt, but there's no point in checking every month. There's just no way. There's no reason for that. In some years, they do what we call a second draw. It's simply revealing more case numbers because the draw process itself numbers from 1 to 10 million every single entry within the region. And so when they do a second draw, they're actually not doing another draw. They're just revealing the next numbers, right? That happens in some years. I said on a video, I published a video about this in the last 24 to 48 hours. And I said I thought it was DV 2018 that was the last time that happened. I think actually it was DV 2017. I just looked at the data last night. And so it happens in some years, but it really only happens in years where there's already a very small number of selectees chosen in the first draw. There's no point in, if you've got 120,000 selectees already, there's no point adding more. So in the year that it happened most recently, DV 2017, there were only 83,000 selectees. And so they added some more. And in the end, they got about 48,000 visas issued. Plus adjustment of status, they almost hit about 50,000, which was the available amount of visas in that year, and they did that because they did a second draw. The second draw, though, happens in September, October, so there's no point in checking every day until then, and that's the issue I have with these other YouTubers, that they're telling people to continually check, and they're just wasting your time. You're wasting your time doing that. Check again in September or October one time. But frankly, once we get the number of selectees for DV 2023, if that number is 100,000 or more, and I suspect it will be, then there is going to be no second draw. That will at that point be clear. But it is not clear at this point. It's not 100% certain at this point whether it will happen or not. Okay. All right. This was another stupid comment by another stupid YouTuber. Sorry, I'm being too blunt, but really, people that don't know what they're talking about should just not talk about it, right? The 55K visas includes derivatives. So if your mum, dad, and 2 kids, and you take visas, that's 4 visas off the 55,000. There is no other interpretation. There is no doubt about that at all. And why some YouTubers talk about anything else but that and tell people to go check the data. I mean, they're just idiotic. There's no other way of putting it. Lots of a passport which you're applying for DV 2023. What should I do now? Get a new one. Nothing but that. They're no longer interested whether you had a valid passport or not at the time of entry. That rule was blocked. Again, I just published a video about that in the last 24 to 48 hours. The passport rule itself was blocked by a judge in February of this year. And I explained in my video why it was blocked, but the short answer is that rule was blocked. So just go and get a new passport. It's no problem. Okay. DV 2020, what about expired visas? The appeals that are going on at the moment are regarding DV 2020 visas to be issued, and those appeals will go on until about September of this year. And at that point, they'll make a decision about the 9,095 visas reserved for issuance. For expired visas, which is what your question is about, people that had expired visas in DV 2020, that is a part of one of the Gomez lawsuits. The ACCA lawsuit has a part of that. So there might be a decision about that. But frankly, it's a relatively small part of the overall equation. So at the moment, it doesn't look good for that situation. Expired visas expire, and you're supposed to have used it before they expired. And I know you couldn't travel, blah, blah, blah. I understand the issue. But the reality is it will take a judge's order in order to force the government to reissue those visas. And that's not the biggest issue being fought right now for DV 2020. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out. That's all I can really comment about that at the moment. We'll have to see. In the DS-260, Shabnam, your current occupation is that you're studying as a student, right? So in the DS-260, it asks for history of education. You go backwards in your history, your most recent education completed first. But the question about education says, what's the highest, what's the education completed, right? So you haven't completed your education yet, right now for your master's. That's what you're doing right now. That's your current occupation. So you don't mention it in the education field, you mention it in your current occupation. If you're also working, so you're part-time working, part-time studying, then just choose whichever those two things the occupation that you're doing right now. It's not necessary to impress anyone with the fact that you're doing a master's anyway. You're just trying to explain what your current occupation is, right? So, no, don't worry about it. What do I think about the unused visa reallocation process by CN or embassy specific or whatever? In DV 2022, it's clear that people are starting to clutch at straws, right? It's like a drowning man will hold on to anything around him, right? I understand the motivation. So now, of course, people are talking about, okay, there's going to be unused visas, perhaps from the Africa region. And I think that might be true. Probably the Africa region, because of the embassy closures in that region, is probably the region that is going to run out of time rather than running out of visas. Whereas other regions have a chance of running out of visas and running out of time, right? So there is a part of the law, it's 203C for any of you that want to look it up, that describes the allocation of visas between the regions. Jesse Bless, by the way, deposed one of the government staff, and apparently, according to Jesse, and I don't quite understand this, the government staff at KCC think there is no such thing as regional quotas, which is absolutely moronic, if that's what they said, right? Because there's a whole section of the law that describes how the DV lottery process is run, and there's a section of that which is talking specifically about how visas are allocated, and so it's nuts to say that doesn't exist. It's just silly. So let me look it up, see if I can find that quickly. If I can, yeah, here we go. I'll show you this now. So share screen. Share second screen. Okay, so for people that want to talk about the reallocation, right? So if we go down here and we look at this, I'm showing you the law. This is the law that controls the allocation of visas and diversity. Let me just find diversity. Diversity is in there. Here we go. Diversity. That's what it's okay. Diversity immigrants. This is the section that controls the allocation of visas, and there's a formula. And I described the formula in a video just about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And basically, there are things called high admission states and low admission states, and high admission regions and low admission regions. It's all quite complicated. To read this law is quite complicated, but I tried to simplify that and explain it in a video just recently. So if you're interested in looking at that video, by all means, go and have a look. But there is this clause 4, which talks about the redistribution of unused visa numbers. And what it says is that if there were a region that didn't use that the Secretary of State believes is not going to use all those visas, that those visas can be redistributed to other regions, but they're redistributed in the percentages that the original allocation is in, right? Which means that if Africa were the region, for example, that let's say didn't have enough visas issued, and let's say they were short by, let's say, 3,000 visas, I explained to someone this morning, Oceania region could theoretically get another 45 visas, right? Because that's the percentage allocation that that is used to sort of run the process. So it's possible that visas are moved from one region to another. And you can see the actual wording of the law here. And again, it's complicated. And I've read it, I understand it, but frankly, it's a little complex. But you can go ahead and read that. Just look up INA 203C if you want to go read that. Will it happen? I don't know. It's only going to be relevant for a couple of the regions anyway. Probably South America could probably benefit from it. Oceania could benefit from it, and probably Asia could benefit from it. If there's going to be an underfilling, it'll probably most likely happen in Africa and possibly in Europe because of the difficulties with the embassies in those two regions, right? Whereas other than Sydney, Oceania, for example, is moving along pretty well. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. I don't want to sort of be precise about it because, frankly, we don't know what they're going to do. It's just an available tool to them. Okay. Okay. I have a question. Does the entry photo could be a big reason of losing the DV lottery? Basically, no. People freak out every year about this, and they go ahead and submit the photo, and after they've submitted their entry, then they go and read the instructions. The idea is to read instructions before you submit the entry, right? Not after. But anyway, then they go and read the instructions, and if you read the instructions about the photo, it talks about a percentage of the size of the head and the positioning of the face, etc., within the photo. So if you've really messed up, if you've taken, a bright red background and you're looking the wrong way, or you've taken a picture of your cat's ass, and that's the photo you've used for the lottery, then yeah, that will probably be filtered out. That will probably be the reason you're not selected. But if your photo is on a plain light colored background and your head is a little bit bigger than it's supposed to be or something like that, then that wouldn't be a reason why your entry is not selected. It's just luck of the draw. This is a lottery. Your chance of selection in most regions is like once in 100 years, once in 200 years in Africa, right? So the reality is a lot of people will apply for the lottery process year after year and they're never going to get selected. That's going to be the normal experience for most people. It's an absolute privilege and an amazing thing to be selected in the lottery. So, don't underestimate that. It's not a plan you should have. You don't make a plan to win the lottery. You just hope it's going to happen. And if it happens, you try and take advantage of it. Aria says, your case number is 14,000. You're really worried about your case number. Should you be worried? You should be worried that you're not giving me accurate information. You're telling me you're from Iran, but you're not telling me the year of the lottery. So I can't answer the question when you're not being, clear with me. You have to be clear. You have to tell me the year, the region. I know the region, obviously, and the number, right? So give me a clue. But just so, because I'll probably lose your question. If you're DV 2022, yeah, you should be worried. If you're DV 2023, I don't know yet. It's too early to say. Free Mvata. Envato. Are you saying someone's got a free Envato? Anyway, I don't know about your name. But hey, Brett, DV 2020, case number AF 16,000, AP case, now winner 2023. Awesome. With case number of AF 46,000. Sent DS 260 and documents to Kcc after result immediate. What do I think? What do I think about what free Envato? I think it's great that you've been selected again. Congratulations on that. AF 46,000 is not going to be current until well into next year. By that time, we'll know more about DV 2020 and whether you have an opportunity there. But you've got like 2 horses running in the same race, so you're in a good position. So that's awesome. Name on the birth certificate has 3 names. Surname isn't my father's name. Will my winning chance reduce if I start playing the lottery with my surname, father's name? Well, enter with your correct details. If you've changed your name legally to take your father's name, then that is your correct name. But other than that, enter with your correct legal name. Okay. Don't make problems for yourself, right? Don't just make stuff up and say, "Oh, that's a nice name. I'm going to use that." Or my dad's called this. I should use his name. Don't make stuff up. Like if that's a process that you went through to legally take his name or whatever, then by all means use his name. But you'll have paperwork, legal paperwork, to show that, right? Kevin says we've got a big problem with the embassy in Warsaw. Yeah, it shouldn't be a surprise, right? Because of what those idiots in from Russia are doing, thanks to Putin's stupidity. They've caused chaos in Eastern Europe. Don't even get me started on that. It drives me nuts. But yeah, Warsaw Embassy is obviously the responsible embassy for the stuff going on in that region to support the people from Ukraine. So yeah, there's a big problem, and it must feel pretty awful if you were previously assigned to Warsaw. You're from Poland, you mind your own business, and all of a sudden the US embassy is flooded by people. I get the frustration, but let's spare a thought to the people of Ukraine, millions of whom have been displaced because some asshole in Moscow thinks he wants to do something because he just wants to be an asshole. And frankly, if you're a Russian and you're sitting there thinking, "Oh, Putin's a great man and I'm fully supportive," well, screw you. I don't believe in that. In the same way that I've not been impressed with other wars in other countries, in Sudan and Iraq and Iran. I mean, just screw anyone that is thinking they can do those sort of things. And if you do it for religious reasons, screw you doubly. That's where I'm coming from. Radio GB, I love Seti. I should interview with Radio GB about Iranian and Afghan winners, and also Seti. I really like her, and also the gentleman also from Egypt he's asked me for an interview as well. I apologize to those people. I've been really busy at work, and now we've got DV 2023 going, so I'm just very short of time, but I'll reach out to Radio GB Seti, as I know her, to work with her in an interview, because I know that she's able to translate into Iranian and Afghan language, as it were. Okay, so do you think that KCC going to process all DV 2022 cases? No, of course they're not. There were 119,000 selectees, of which I've roughly calculated there must be about 80,000 people that want the visas, right? They over-selected. There's not enough time for them to interview everyone, and there's not enough visas for them to interview everyone. So no, they're not going to process all the cases. It's just obvious that it shouldn't be a surprise, right? But they're probably going to issue 40 to 45,000 visas. They actually did a good thing, believe it or not, with the what they call the pilot program, which they announced in December 9th. It has helped. The fact that they're able to process interviews in some embassies, even though they can't in others, it's a good thing in terms of the overall impact, right? I'm happy that they've done something that has done, that's done something good. But there's so much chaos going on, and it's pretty unfair what's going on. But but their heart was in the right place, even if their minds was not really, right? I was selected from Winfrey. I was selected in the question was denied tourist visa in 2019 because this affected me during the interview. Second question you'll go on to ask in a moment, no doubt. Right, so your 2019 tourist visa was most likely denied because you failed to show adequate ties to your home country, and they suspected that you would not return home at the end of your visa. That is the most likely reason to receive a denial in a non-immigrant visa, right? So I'm guessing that's why you were denied your tourist visa back in 2019. Just a guess. It could be for some other reason, right? If that was the reason, then number one, they were absolutely right. You wanted to emigrate to the USA, right? Because you then entered a lottery, and that was to live in the USA. But number two, that reason is no longer valid. It's not a reason to not give you a visa in DV lottery. So that normally, if that's the reason, then no, that's not going to be a problem. If you were denied a visa, though, because you were an international drug dealer or bank robber or something, and you're a person of low moral character, and that's why they denied you a visa, well, you're still that person, I'm afraid. So that's why you're going to get denied in DV lottery as well. Okay. So I don't know you. I'm kind of joking with you, but you take the point, right? So if it was the normal reason, then that isn't a problem for DV. Go back. You submitted your DS on 9th of May, one day after winning DV, and got DQ'd. Oh, you're talking about DV 2022. Again, please give the year. I'm trying to sort of figure this out. So you got DQ'd. Your case number is AF24K. Your interview location is Islamabad. Is bringing any advantage that I submitted very early. Islamabad has got a number of people lined up. As I understand it, right? I don't keep track of all of the embassies all of the time. I can't. I don't have enough time. But my understanding is that there is a sort of a line of people, and if there's a line, supposedly they're going in case number order. But I don't quite believe that, to be honest. I mean that there is a way that they're organizing that. So. Is there an advantage you got qualified earlier? Probably not at this point. It's probably not going to help you, but you'll have to wait and see. I can't really sort of predict exactly what's going to happen at each and every embassy. I just reviewed, by the way, the 2021 testimony of one of the government lawyers who explained why case number 80,000 and something had been scheduled. And they very specifically said it was because that case was processed early. And was documentarily qualified early. That was absolutely the driving factor. And today it still may be, but we don't know 100% sure. They may be qualifying cases in case number order, or they may be just taking case number order as being the ordering system at certain embassies. It's going to vary by embassy, basically. Passport expiration matters, or I have to renew the passport before you fill out the DS260 form. If your passport is valid today, you can use it in your DS260. Even if it's expired today, you can still submit your DS260. You can use the other ID. Right, there's an option to submit it with another ID, so do that. Just you can submit your DS260. By the way, the CX system where you fill in your DS260 is overwhelmed. Kcc have recognized the problem. They've responded to people saying, yeah, there's a problem with the CX system. So a lot of you that are getting frustrated you can't submit your DS260, just stop trying, because it's going to, it'll be better in a few days' time. Okay. I've answered that question. RQ, please don't repeat the same question. That's not fair for everyone else. Is it okay to have two separate applications at USCIS? Yes, it is okay. You can have two cases proceeding at the same time. AF14K from Kenya, ready to be scheduled. Hopefully I'll have the chance. Fingers crossed for you. I have to say Kenya's not doing great, right? DV 2021, we're still waiting for the appeals to go through. As I mentioned earlier, it's going to be probably September before we hear anything more. Okay. This question is quite a common question, so I'm glad you've asked it. Thank you. You changed your name before the DV 2022 winners. Your education document name is different from your winner's name in DV 2022. So what do? This is very normal. This isn't really a problem, but some people get panicky and worried about it. It's very normal that as you grow up, you go through your education, particularly for a female, you go through your education with one name, and when you marry, you change your name. And in some cultures, mainly Western cultures, but some cultures, a woman will take her husband's name during the marriage procedure, and that's a change of name legally. That's very normal, right? The American staff at the embassies are going to recognize that as a normal thing. Not going to be worried about it. You just have to show the paperwork that shows how you changed your name. And in the case of marriage, the paperwork that shows how you change your name is your marriage certificate. And on that certificate, it'll mention your maiden name, and you'll have used your maiden name also in the DS-260. And so the original education is going to tie up to what you told them on the DS-260. It'll tie up to what's on the marriage document, and everything will be lovely, right? So there's nothing to worry about. Is there any Russians listening? Yeah, I don't know. Are you a Russian, Kevin? It doesn't sound like a Russian name. Kevinsky, perhaps. I don't know. I feel bad. I know there are, particularly in my line of interest, right, in diversity, there are Russians listening to this that probably get pissed off with me about the way I'm talking about their stupid country. But those Russians are ones that want to move to America and therefore probably are pro-America, right? And probably are reading and looking at the world's media and know that this lunacy going on in Ukraine is because of Putin being an asshole, as opposed to any of the stupid bullshit he comes out with about Nazism or whatever else. And so hopefully they will recognize that I'm talking the truth about the arsehole, and they're not so nationalistic about Russia that they think I'm being insulting their country. If they are, they can come and see me, and I'm happy to talk to them. So there you go. Okay, so Simon, I'm at AF23K, not scheduled. Do you think is there any chance of being scheduled? I don't know. I can't estimate somebody's chances based on some random set of details like your case number, or I'm at this embassy, or what do you think is going to happen on Tuesday in my country? I don't know. I don't know what the weather's going to be like next Wednesday in your country either. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 months. We'll have to wait and see. Oh, blast. I just skipped by a bunch of questions. Let me see if I can find my place again. I'm going to try and quickly go through some questions. Quick fire. Do you think the 55K limit will be reached for DV 2022? No, I don't think we will, because there's not enough time. Another question, is there any chance? I don't know. Is it better to submit the DS-260 early or late time? It depends. Depends on your situation, right? I heard from a gentleman this morning who wants to delay his interview. And so he's asking, when can he safely submit his DS-260? Not everyone wants the earliest possible interview that they can get. If you are taking your time, you know what you're doing, you've considered everything that's going on, there's no harm in submitting a DS-260 early at any case number. But you're going to wait until your case number is current, right? So that's just the reality. For some of you, you may be better off delaying your DS-260. And if your case number is really high, you should be considering that submitting a DS-260 is a declaration of immigrant intent. So if you never get the diversity visa lottery visa, and later you want to apply for a non-immigrant visa, the fact that you submitted the DS-260 is going to make that later non-immigrant visa application process a bit harder, right? So some of you shouldn't be rushing to submit your DS-260 just blindly with high case numbers. Now, there are a bunch of little children running around who love to argue with me at any given moment. And they'll say that I'm saying a bad thing by saying that, right? But don't worry about those little children. So, I'm just going to continue giving the good advice, the best advice I can give. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Do you think Frankfurt will manage all DV interviews? I don't know, Cedric. I don't. Sure. I don't know. I mean, yes, it would be a terrible blow if Frankfurt doesn't give everyone a chance, but not everyone is going to get a chance, no matter whether it's Frankfurt or Paris or Auckland or not everyone's going to get a chance. That's the nature of the lottery. It's pretty it's a pretty unfair thing, really. I'd love to have answered this question, Zalista. Case number 2400 for DV23 will go for interview probably when, but you didn't give me a region, right? And so if your case number 2400 in Oceania, that's a very high case number and it's probably going to be very late. If you're in Africa, that's a very low case number and it's going to be early. But you didn't tell me. So here's the rule. You give me the complete case number, 2023, AF or EU, whatever is the region, and then give me the 2400 or 24XX. That's the only way I can help you, right? You're from Bangladesh. How can you apply for DV 2022? You can't. Bangladesh is excluded from the lottery, just like my own country. And the reason that your country and my country is excluded is because we send too many immigrants to America through other sources, family-based and employment-based. And therefore, we're no longer eligible to be in the lottery, okay? So you can't. For whatever reason, would an embassy reject laminated documents, but the same can be verified? Yeah. Look, the interviews last about 5 minutes, right? You carry a few extra pieces of documentation, but they're not interested in learning your complete life history. They're busy people. So you present the documents in the best, simplest way, the most honest, transparent way possible, right? You answer the questions as simply as possible. They're quick interviews. Trust me, you'll be amazed when you have your interview how quick it will be. Some interviews may be going on for 10 or 15 minutes, but that's very rare. Most interviews are done in 5 minutes flat, right? So they're not interested in all sorts of evidence and proof that this document is real. Just show them the best non-laminated document you have, right? Okay. Yep, I'm getting a lot of questions like this. So I'm getting a lot of questions from people who apparently have been living under a rock for the last, few months, and they don't know what's going on. The reality is DV 2022 is not going well, right? There are extreme measures that are taking place to try and do things as good as possible, but they're condensing a lot of work into a short time. There's a lot of deprioritization going. There's a lot of people who are going to miss out. So, your Ankara is not because you're from Afghanistan that you're being deprioritized. It's just lots of people are being deprioritized, and a lot of people won't get their visas. And I'm horrified by that. But that's the way it is, right? And I'm sorry you're just sort of beginning to understand that. So there you go. Good luck to you. What do you see the chance of winning DV 2020 lawsuit? I mean, it was already won, right? Already we got about 7,000 people visas that they would never have got had it not been for the lawsuits. But now there's another 9,095 visas that were reserved that we want to see issued. And that's what the lawsuit is continuing about. I think there's a strong case I think we won the lawsuit for the right reasons. Then the government appealed, and they've come up with a pretty similar list of reasons. They just want to re-argue the same reasons. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I can't predict it. I can't predict the outcome. Okay, but fingers crossed. That's all I can say. Is there any way to check one's original EDV entry? No, there isn't. You can infer some information from it. So, for example, if you didn't include your spouse won't be on the DS260 form, right? When you go in for the first time, for example. Same thing with a child. If you included them, they'll be there. You shouldn't need to use the add applicant button unless you've married since the entry or had another child since the entry, right? So that's one thing. For example, people often say, oh, I'm not sure I included my child, I've got 17 kids and I think I left one of them off. You'll see them all on the DS260 application system when you go in, if you included them. If you didn't include them, they won't be there. Country of chargeability is another one that people say, oh, I'm sure I picked the right country of chargeability. And the system doesn't randomly pick the country. And quite often I hear from people, oh, I live in Australia, but I'm from some other country, and they've got my chargeability country down as Australia, and that's wrong and it's their mistake. No, of course it's not. You think out of the 180 countries that were in the list, they've just happened to pick the one that you live in, or is it more likely that you picked the wrong country? It's the latter, obviously, right? So there you go. When I applied, I had filed for the divorce. I don't have my husband's passport details, hence I put divorced. Nah, you'll be disqualified. You put divorced, you weren't divorced. You had only filed for divorce. The divorce is not final until you get the decree nisi or whatever it is. And so you entered as divorced and therefore didn't list your husband. And there is no possible way you can argue your way out of this one, right? Because you told them that you were married. They're going to want evidence of your divorce. You can't show them that evidence because it won't be dated correctly. And if you add your husband, then he should have been on your original entry. So 100% certain there is no way out of this one for you. Your situation is over. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but frankly, it's better sometimes to be blunt and honest with someone rather than them spending time and wasting their time and wasting their money on fruitless exercise. There's no possible way that you can recover from this thing you did. Okay, you should not have chosen divorce unless you were actually divorced. And it's so frustrating because you've been selected in a once in a lifetime lottery. I mean, maybe you'll be selected again, so maybe it's twice in a lifetime. But yeah, you've ruined it. As simple as that. Sorry about that. Aslam, I have a qualification higher than the high school certificate. Do I have to submit only my highest level of qualification? No, you should. In the DS260, you need to detail all of your education. And this is one of the most common mistakes I see people making. They think like you do, that you only have to give information about your highest level of qualification. Absolutely wrong. You need to be documenting your education, the formal course of education you went through from secondary education, which is about age 12, 11 or 12 in most countries. So you need to actually go backwards in time and give them all of that information. At the interview, some CEOs will only look at your highest level of qualification, but some CEOs will insist on seeing proof that you went through secondary education as well. Okay, and they're entitled to do it either way. They have discretion on that to ask for the full history of education or not. That's up to them. Can your visa be approved if the level of education is vocational training? No. So let's be clear about what vocational training is. There are some countries where there are some schools which are called vocational schools, but the education you get at those schools is general education. They're not necessarily for a specific trade. So vocational training is considered not a qualification towards the diversity visa lottery. But that sort of vocational training we're talking about is for a specific trade. So, for example, if you went to a trade school to learn how to become a plumber, that training or education you received at that trade school for a year or 2 years to become a plumber is not able to be used to qualify you for the for the lottery. Okay. Same thing if you went into nursing or if you went into law or whatever else. Now, if the education you took was not specifically for one vocation, but you could, for example, take general education and then transfer to some other vocation, then that is going to be acceptable, right? So it's not about the name of the school that you're at; it's about the type of education you received. All right. But if you studied for, to be a specific vocation or job, and that's the schooling you had, then that is not going to be useful to you for the DV lottery. It's useful for everything else. By the way, be a plumber in America. If you can be a plumber, geez, they earn a fortune, right? So there you go. For DV 2023, a lot of Iranian I have, see 14 or 15 or 12, do you think they have a chance for 2023? We don't know, right? So I'm not estimating anybody's chances based on their case number in DV 2023 because we don't know a couple of things. We don't know the number of selectees that have been selected, right? We don't know the highest case numbers in each region. And for countries like Iran and for Nepal, for example, in the Asia region, which are two limited countries, I'm hearing very high case numbers for those two countries. I'm hearing 20K, for example, in Nepal. That either means there's a lot of selectees, right? Or it means that there's a lot of holes, right? One or the other thing. And it could be both, actually. It could be there's a lot of selectees and there's a lot of holes. But I don't have any of the information at the moment to know that. And I'm not going to have that information for weeks to come. When we have the number of selectees per country, we'll know a bit more, right? And by that time, we'll have had some more information about the highest case numbers that people are seeing in various regions, right? But for now, it's too early to guess. Okay. Have KCC done all the DV 2022 DS260s? They're going to start with DV 2023 now. Yes, they're going to start with DV 2023. That doesn't mean that they won't do any more for DV 2022. They'll probably split the teams and split their resources. They'll have some people working on DV 2023 while they're also working on DV 2022 with different cases. Okay. I don't know exactly, but that's probably going to be, what's happening. We do know from lawsuits that they have a large number of cases that they have processed that are documentarily qualified. And so in a sense, they've got more than enough people already processed. But there are some embassies where there continues to be space and they may be processing cases for those embassies. Okay. But there's some embassies where they're full up, they've got too many people lined up, and they're not going to process, they're probably not going to process any more DS260s for those. I'm just sort of skipping through the repeated questions. There's this question I received earlier, actually, today about Abu Dhabi Embassy. They postponed some DV interviews from 1 month to the next, and they did it for a whole period of 2 months. So it's something like they moved from May to July, and I think June they moved to August, something like that. Now, I don't know if they did it for all of the interviews or just some of the interviews that they had scheduled. I don't know, right? I don't know why they did it necessarily, but it's not a big surprise because we've seen this sort of thing happen at other embassies. It probably means that they are restricting the capacity for DV cases. Will that continue? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Okay. Maxence. That's an interesting name, Maxence. I'm moving to the US 1 week before the visa expiration due to personal reasons. Is it risky if we do not count the COVID situation? Have you heard of people being rejected at this border? Right. personally, I wouldn't leave it until 1 week before. You don't know what's going to happen, right? You don't know what's going to happen with COVID. They could, for example, suddenly have, a massive COVID crisis or political crisis. Who the hell knows? Or you could just miss your flight and there not be another flight available for, another few days. But if you get to the US border in time before your visa expires, you should be fine. It doesn't matter if it's got 20 minutes left before it expires. But I just think it's a little bit risky leaving it to the last week. But if that's all you can do, that's all you can do. Okay? So good luck with that. Just don't miss the bloody flight, right? Passport Requirement Act. Is it possible to be rejected in DV lottery for registering with an expired passport? No, it is not possible. I just posted a video about that. So no, you won't be disqualified for that reason. Okay, another couple of minutes. When will Charles Cook invite for a lawsuit, and how much will it cost to take part in his lawsuit? You have to ask Charles. The impact team have filed a lawsuit for DV 2022. I don't know that they're doing any more, but Charles Cook is, and all of his team are very approachable. You can ask them directly. You don't have to ask me. I don't actually work for any of these law firms. I'm not a lawyer. I don't get paid by any of the lawyers. I just help them, right? But I do that for free. I'm not a lawyer, right? I'm DV 2022 winner. You've used an exemption. Will I have any problem with that? No, same thing. The passport rule was blocked by a judge in February, right? So they can't disqualify you because you because you used the exemption. You're bloody lucky because you probably weren't entitled to use the exemption. And if it hadn't been for this lawsuit, which blocked the passport rule on a technicality, then you would have been disqualified for that. You should have been disqualified for that, right? There's many people that didn't enter the lottery because they actually listened to the instructions. And they said, "Oh, I don't have a passport. Fair enough. I won't enter." You listened to the instructions and said, "Nah, I'll enter anyway." Right? So you should have been disqualified. But luckily for you, that was blocked. Okay. Right. I sort of touched on this earlier. You know of a DV 2023 winner with a photo that doesn't meet the technical requirements. If they're a winner, they've already been through the screening process, right? So unless they took a picture of a camel's ass, and that's what the consular officer sees on the day they go for the interview, it's going to be fine. Doesn't matter that it didn't meet the technical requirements because it's already been through the screening process. Okay, it's very, very rare to see someone, and it does happen rarely, that you see someone disqualified for photos, but it's normally because they used a very old photo and it's obvious that that photo is old. And I mean that it's obvious from their appearance, right? Other than that, if you get selected, it's been through the screening process, so relax. Okay, try and catch up here. Assuming someone has changed their address as an adult, but still within your country of birth, should you just indicate your home parent address? No, you should give your proper. Always tell the truth. Tell the accurate, honest truth on the DS-260 and the whole process, right? That's what you should do. I've had a number of questions like this. The selected letter has the wrong date on it for DV 2023. The results were announced on May the 7th, and the letter that the DV 2023 people received has got May 8th written on it. That's a mistake. It's not an important mistake. It doesn't matter. In DV 2022, people are noticing that their date also has changed on their letter. Again, it doesn't matter. I don't know why people are freaking out about this date. It doesn't matter, right? There is one particular thing that refers to the date of the announcement and that sort of thing, that's to do with the CSPA, the Child Status Protection Act. That's about people who've got children that are reaching 21 years old. But other than that, the date on the letter is completely irrelevant. So don't worry about it. Right? Relax. Oh, and did an error like that occur in DV 2012? Okay, so oh god, there's another YouTuber who with over 100,000 subscribers. So he's talking to a lot of people, and I saw a video of his the other day where he was talking about the chances for a second draw and everything else, and he's referred to DV 2012. He clearly doesn't have a bloody clue what happened in DV 2012, right? He doesn't understand the second draw process, and he thinks that DV 2012 was a second draw and everything else. So he's given people a bunch of crappy information, which I now find myself answering questions about. So it pisses me off, frankly, that there's these YouTubers out there that just really want to, post videos about salads and at the same time get, views for nonsense information. That particular thing, this letter thing, had nothing to do with the DV 2012. So if Mr. Makalulu wants to understand the real situation, he can ask me and I'll explain to him like a 5-year-old what happened in 2012, but it wasn't what he thinks happened and what he's told people. And other YouTubers have done the same thing as well. So this has got nothing to do with 2012. Okay? Oh dear. Bless him. And EBM, love you, man. Very impressed with what you've done with the channel. But please, let's keep information accurate, right? So anyway, I got 50,000 subscribers, and I know what I'm talking about. He's got 100,000 subscribers, no clue, but people love him. So whatever, I don't know. Britt, please, my case number is AF 13,000. I was resubmitted on DS269 9th of November from Ghana. Will I get an interview? I can't guess this one. Sorry, man. I can't guess this, right? Ask EBM. He'll be able to give you a perfect answer. I don't know. Mo, any idea? 2021 from Afghanistan. I missed all the processes. Yeah, it's not just about Afghanistan, is it? It's about people in 2021 and 2020. People in 2020, DV 2020, that didn't get their visas are part of a class and therefore protected under the Gomez lawsuit. And so they've got a chance. It's not a perfect chance, but they've got a chance to get one of the 9,095 reserve visas. People on DV 2021 that chose not to be in a lawsuit have got no more chance, right? That chance is gone, whether you're from Afghanistan or any other country. Lawsuits work, people. You have to pay attention to them. Would entering, this is a good question, Madar, would entering the lottery negatively affect my non-immigrant visa interview? It shouldn't, but it has in the past. So basically, when you go for a non-immigrant visa interview, the consular officer is supposed to consider a range of factors. And one of the factors is, will this person abide by the rules and return to their country at the end of the visa period? They sometimes will ask questions. Have you ever entered the DV lottery? Now, if you've entered the lottery and never won, and never submitted the DS260, that you shouldn't be held accountable for that. But in some cases, a consular officer has used that as evidence to say, well, this person is trying to sneak into America, right? And won't return. They shouldn't do that, but they're human, so they take that as one of the factors. If, on the other hand, you did win and submitted your DS260, that is clearly a declaration of intention to emigrate to the USA. And they are allowed to take that legitimately as a factor to consider your application. It doesn't mean that you're disqualified from a non-immigrant visa, but it can be one of the factors that they will use, right? It can make it a bit harder. Okay, I hope that's clear. Okay. Any updates regarding the prioritization? Not really. The prioritization was cancelled last year, but when they cancelled it, they said that it's now up to the individual embassies to apply the prioritization they want to apply. And so many of the embassies have said, okay, fine, we'll apply that tiered prioritization that that was in place, and therefore they've deprioritized diversity visa cases. That's going on. That's a reality. It shouldn't be happening, but it is happening. So that's the reality there. Okay. Joburg got a DS 5535. So for those that don't know, some cases go for an interview, and at the end of the interview, or sometimes a day or two later, they're told to fill in a form called a DS 5535, which is an additional set of questions for a longer time period than the DS 260 asks about people you know and social media and that sort of thing. And there's a level of investigation then performed on the DS 5535. I can't tell you how long that will take in an individual case. It can take weeks, and it can sometimes has taken months to process that form. I can't predict the length of time it will take. I just hope it will be done in time for you. So fingers crossed. One of my middle names is missing. Big deal? Well, I mean, if you can find it, it's probably not a big deal at all. Where did it go missing? Did you leave it at the shops? Did you leave it in the car, perhaps? I don't know. One of your middle names is missing. Missing from where, right? Come on, Mohammed. Missing from the original entry? Missing from your passport? I mean, missing from where? Where? Give me some clue here. Heard London is very backlogged. Thinking of moving to Bangkok's hometown low teas. Should I risk unlocking while your AS 26K? Anything you do, you need to do it now, right? You can try that, but get on with it, right? There's not much time left. The final interviews for DV 2022 are going to be scheduled in July based on cases which are ready for scheduling in early July, right? So you don't have very much time left. So you need to get your ass into gear and make a decision, right? You've been in London, so you're used to the British way of talking, I should imagine. So yeah, move your ass. Okay. Yeah, so I was surprised people didn't ask this question earlier, but the DS260 submission program or application at SEAC is overwhelmed by the number of people that are trying to access it. And so it's broken, basically. It's sort of reacting badly. Some people have managed to get their applications in through trying different times of day. But in general, it's probably going to be bad for a few more days still. So you just need to wait a few days. Now, if you've got a high case number, that's not going to make any difference at all to your case. So, so relax about it and just check again in a few days' time. Okay. How does the I-134 form work with DV applicants? The I-134 is an affidavit of support. Every year, for a little while, people argue with me that it's not necessary to have an affidavit of support for DV lottery cases. And I can tell you it is in some cases, right? It is required in some cases. You'll have some COs at some embassies who will ask for the I-134. In Sri Lanka, for example, they ask for it to be provided to the embassy even prior to the interview, right? So now we use the I-134 in DV, not the I-864, which is another form that's used in other types of immigrant visa cases. In DV, that I-864 is not authorized to be used. You can only use the I-134. So it will be asked in some cases. I would always recommend that you prepare for that if you can. If you can find someone in America that is prepared to fill out an I-134 for you, go ahead and do that. And there is a formula used basically to assess that person's income against the poverty guidelines. It's got to be 100% of the poverty guidelines, based on your family size and your sponsor's family size added together. So if he's got 4 people in his family and you've got 5, then he needs to earn enough money to support 9 people on the poverty guidelines. The poverty guidelines are very low. It starts at about $22,000 or something, $23,000, goes up to 40 or 50,000. Frankly, if you've got someone who's saying they'll support you that doesn't meet the poverty guidelines, then they're barely able to support themselves, let alone supporting you. So, you should be using it. Okay. Okay. We've been going about an hour. I'm going to take one more question, and then we'll call it a day. Let me just see if I can find a nice question. This is an interesting question. What effect does joining a litigation against KCC in the State Department affect my chances of getting an interview expedited? I'm a DV 2022 selectee. So there are group lawsuits and there are individual mandamus lawsuits. Mandamus means get on with it, right? In a sense. In either case, being in a lawsuit is a benefit. It improves your chances, right? It doesn't guarantee you anything. In neither case does it guarantee you success. It just improves your chances. There's no negative impacts of being in a lawsuit, apart from the fact that you've spent some money. But there's no retaliation or anything like that. Okay. I think that's probably it. I think I've probably covered most questions. I hope that was interesting to you. Answered a lot of questions there, and hopefully that was useful to some of you. But we'll do this again. And I'm trying to post a few videos at the moment on my channel, which are sort of quick little videos to answer specific questions. And so look out for those. Please do make sure you subscribe to my channel and get the accurate information, and say hi to all those other YouTubers for me that are talking nonsense. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining with me today. All right. Bye-bye. Keep well.